Hi, Kathy White, Certified Professional Ergonomist. This video is a follow-up to the overview video provided about psychosocial risk factors in ergonomics. The last video was a very general overview, but again, just to very briefly recap, there's a lot of research in the ergonomic space about physical risk factors. Things like force, posture, and repetition are relatively well known, and aspects of work design that relate to addressing those risk factors are pretty well known, and there's a fair amount of research on those topic areas. When it comes to the psychosocial factors, we're talking more along the lines of factors around the work environment that can impact aspects such as emotional well-being, and those can actually lead to physical or psychological damage to your health, and that does interface with risk for potentially a musculoskeletal disorder. So it's really important, even though there's not a lot of research in this area and it's still emerging, to try to consider the impact of those psychosocial factors on that ergonomic risk assessment that you're conducting. So today we'll just talk about one of those aspects in more detail, which I alluded to in the previous video around work demands. So we're talking about some of the aspects that are brought upon the individual from the demands of the work itself. And I'm just going to break down 4 of them, and we're just going to talk about ways that you might want to advise somebody to address those factors as part of your ergonomics risk assessment. The first aspect is hours worked. There may be periods of time in that person's work, or it may be a consistent issue where there's a very high duration of activity that is being presented because of how demanding the tasks are that are being conducted. And it could just be that there's a lot of work to do in a certain period of time, or that person just feels a lot of pressure and stress to finish the work in the amount of time that they're given to conduct that work. So what can you do in those situations? Certainly, you can start at that sharp end, that individual level, to understand if there's ways that they can redistribute their workload. It could be that some of the tasks that they're assigned should be assigned to somebody else in that work environment. It could be that they need somebody else to kind of help with that load. And that might be something where you do have to work with the individual's leader to see if some sort of arrangement needs to be made. Another option is maybe there is work that that individual is conducting that is actually non-value added and could be eliminated, which is also an efficiency enhancement. So in that case, it's more of a dual benefit sort of situation that is taking place. And then in some cases, it just may be that the skill set of that individual does not work well for the type of work that is necessary, and that is what is resulting in the high amount of hours being worked. So certainly this is something you just have to apply a bit of an exploratory approach to understanding the root cause of those hours worked, what can be done to manage. And along those lines, when you think about the hours, you also want to look at work rest cycles. So how much time are they working before they have a little bit of time to stop and vary that work to something else? And just take a bit of a mental health break as well as a break from whatever the physical demands of that activity are. If it's a computer user, something you might want to consider is rest break reminder software. There's various versions that are out there. There's quite a few free versions. You may have to work with what firewalls are available, depending on where the individual is working. And then certainly when you think about things like people working in hot environments, those work rest regimens become extremely important in the management of heat stress related injury illness as well. The next item I was going to touch on is workplace culture. And this kind of relates to the stress comment that I made when we were talking about hours worked, but certainly you might want to get a vibe, an idea of what is that workplace culture like. Is there some stress or demand that is being placed on that individual by the people that they're working around or through their leadership? And that is a cultural aspect that can be difficult to control by the individual, and it's something that may take time to change. But certainly sometimes messaging from others can carry a lot of impact. For example, if somebody sees that their colleagues are working weekends and working evenings, or that their leader is sending emails at midnight, they may feel stress and pressure to do the same. And this, of course, can increase some of those other risk factors of additional duration of work, and some of those other aspects of repetition start to come into play the more that somebody is increasing their own work demands. So that might be something to try to identify and help the individual learn ways to control. And of course, leadership and their messaging and communication becomes becomes extremely critical, which relates to the fourth topic I was going to mention on work demands, which is management style. I think we kind of touched on that with a lot of the other 3 topic categories that I just reviewed, but hopefully this gives you an idea of some of the questions you might want to ask when you're doing your assessments and some potential mechanisms to help control. Thanks for taking the time to listen today.